Good mythical schmorning, everyone. Welcome back to Emerald Peaks. Sorry that there's been a bit of a gap since the last episode. I've been working a lot in the last week, but I was able to find some time to squeeze in another episode. First thing you'll notice is we actually have people in the park now. I was able to add some entry points off screen, so that'll be permanent from now on. If you pay attention to the notification tab, you might notice that the park is actually kind of in shambles right now. I have not done a great job running it as a career park, so I'll make sure to clean some of that up off screen. But as for this episode, like I mentioned in the last one, additions may slow down for a season or two because I want this park to stay semi-realistic and they may not get additions every year. But as you can see, we will be getting a ride next year and it's going to be the antique cars that I'm working on right now. This only ends up taking a little over half of the episode, so for the second half we're going to be focusing on getting some general improvements done for the park. In the comments of the last episode, I saw that one of you actually mentioned you like when I do things like custom cues on screen, so I'm going to bring that back for the time being. But otherwise, not a ton to say right now, a pretty straightforward episode, so we'll catch back up in a few minutes. This ride isn't located in any of the themed areas of the park, so it's just going to have that generic theme that most antique car rides have. However, I still thought that driving through trees would be kind of boring, so I do take some time to add things like this shade structure, and then I also go in and add gardens and bushes and that kind of stuff. It's nothing crazy for theming, but most antique rides aren't very heavily themed, so I just want to make sure it looks nice visually. I do think it's kind of annoying that in this game all vehicles have to have the same color, mainly because in real life a ride like Antique Cars would be way more colorful than that. If I remember correctly, the Planet Coaster 2 footage did confirm that there'll be different colored trains now, and that'll be a huge upgrade in my opinion, not only to rides like this, but also especially to rides like roller coasters. I know that these are pretty slow rides, so maybe needing fences around it isn't fully essential, but I'm gonna add them anyways just to play it safe. I also like building fences in general because I think they help build perimeters around parks so that you can have a more realistic layout. Rides like Antique Cars usually have pretty high capacities because there's not really block zones that you have to worry about, so that's why our queue line is not very big. So that's pretty much it for the Antique Cars. Again, it's nothing fancy and kind of generic, but I do hope that long term when the park is finished, it all works out. I thought 16 minutes would be a little too short for an episode, so I decided to keep rolling and spend the rest of the time going through the park and fixing some stuff. My first stop was the lighting, mainly because I have added a lot of paths and buildings since I last worked on lighting, so a lot of the park is dark right now. A lot of this is going to be on the midway, so you're going to see pretty generic street lights everywhere, but when we get into more themed areas like Timber Township, I'm going to try to use other lighting styles. Another spot where I was kind of slacking with this park is there is not enough benches and trash cans around. We want to make sure that there's plenty of places to sit and plenty of places to toss their trash, so I'm going to go through and add a lot more. Now, I'm not going to be like the Disney parks where you're never going to be more than 30 feet from a trash can, but I just want to make sure that there's enough that the janitors don't have to work too hard in the game. Remember in episode 2 I mentioned that I forgot to build a dining area for Timber Township? Well, here's the big payoff, I finally got around to making it. As you can see, it's nothing fancy, it's basically just picnic tables with umbrellas, but it beats standing, I guess. In comes one picnic area and out goes another. Yes, I know that I just built this in the last episode, but the more I look at it, the more I don't like it, and I actually have plans for this path, so I'm just going to tear it down, and maybe in the next episode we'll find a new spot. So the final thing that I'm going to work on in this episode is I'm going to add some more detail to this employee area. Instead of building all of this at once, I think I'm going to chip away bit by bit whenever I have time in episodes. In this episode, I just add backstage doors for employees and I clean up the fences a bit, so it's not a ton, but I'm trying to make it more realistic. Adding employee areas to your Planet Coaster Park isn't essential, but I feel like it adds a lot of realism, so I definitely suggest you do it if you have the time. Anyways, that's pretty much everything that I do in this episode. I know it's not the most interesting in the world, but like I mentioned, theme parks don't have infinite budgets. Even though I technically do in-game, since I'm playing in sandbox mode, I do want this to feel like a realistic park, so I'm going to try to spread additions out evenly. Even though this is going to be a pretty big park by the end of it, the motto I'm trying to stick to is the less rides you build, the more detail you can add. Since we're currently in year 2 of the park, that means Antique Cars will open in the 1990 season, and I'm sorry to announce that 1991 is going to be an off year, so we will not be building a new ride next episode. However, just because we're not building a ride for 1991 doesn't mean we're not building a ride at all, because 1992 is going to be a big year for this park. As you can see by the amount of land that I'm clearing, our next edition is going to be pretty huge, so I'd stick around if you want. But otherwise, I'll try to get the next episode out somewhat soon, hopefully not 8 or 9 days this time. My set goal is to try to finish this park before Planet Coaster 2 comes out, so we can just dive headfirst into that, so we'll chip away as quickly as we can. Otherwise, that's everything I have, so thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.